People are probably asking why Jordan. They have felt a connection here in Jordan due to its culture, deep history dating back to Paleolithic period, and the hospitality of the Bedouin community during our visit here in Jordan. I will discuss the history of Jordan just to familiarize everyone where Jordan is and how rich their culture is, and then discuss the Bedouin and the relief fund we've started in the next couple vlogs. Jordan was settled by humans since the Paleolithic period. There were three kingdoms at the end of the Bronze Age. They are Ammon, Moab, and Edom. And later rulers include the Nabatean kingdom, the Roman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire. After the Great Arab Revolt against the Ottomans in 1916 during World War I, they were partitioned later by Britain and France. The Emirati of Transjordan was established in 1921 by the Hashemite family, then Emir Abdullah I, and the Emirati became a British protectorate. In 1946, Jordan became an independent state, officially known as the Hashemite Kingdom of Transjordan, but was renamed in 1949 to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan after the country captured the West Bank during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War and annexed it until it was lost to Israel in 1967. Jordan renounced its claim to the territory in 1988. And on October 26, 1994, Israel and Jordan had a peace treaty signed, and it's also called Wadi Araba Treaty. The oldest evidence of some sort of human habitation in Jordan dates back at least 200,000 years. Jordan is rich in Paleolithic remains due to its location within the Levant, where expansions of hominids out of Africa occurred. Tools were found, and the world's oldest evidence of bread making was found in a 14,005 years old Natufian site in Jordan's northeastern desert. The transition from being a hunter and then a gatherer for agricultural villages happened during the Neolithic period, which was in 10,000 to 4,500 BC. Ain al-Ghazal, that's located in eastern Amman, is one of the largest known prehistoric settlements in the Near East, and there were dozens of plaster statues of the human form dating to 7,250 BC or earlier were found. And of course, there were many more. Fortified towns and urban centers appeared in the southern Levant early on in the Bronze Age, which was in 3600 to 1200 BC. Wadi Feynan became a regional center for copper, which was, of course, exploited to produce bronze. So villages in Transjordan expanded very quickly in areas where there are reliable water resources and, of course, agricultural land. Ancient Egyptians also expanded towards the Levant, and they controlled both banks of the Jordan River. And during the Iron Age, which was in 1200 to 332 BC, after the withdrawal of the Egyptians, Transjordan was home to the kingdoms of Ammon, Edom, and Moab. The Transjordanian kingdoms of Ammon, Edom, and Moab were in conflict with the Hebrew kingdoms of Israel and Judah. And one evidence of this is the Mesha Stele that was erected by a Moabite king named King Mesha in 840 BC, commemorates this glory and victory against the Israelites. Around 700 BC, the kingdoms benefited from trade. So the three kingdoms benefited from trade between Syria and Arabia when the Assyrian Empire controlled the Levant regions. The Babylonians took over the empire after the fall in 627 BC. And although the kingdoms supported the Babylonians against Judah in 597 BC, they, of course, rebelled against them a decade later. The kingdoms were reduced, of course, and then they became part of the Persian and the Hellenistic Empire. And by the beginning of the Roman rule around 63 BC, the three kingdoms had lost their distinct identities and they adapted to the Roman culture. Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire in 332 BC started the Hellenistic culture. After his death in 323 BC, the empire split among the generals, and in the end, much of the Transjordan was disputed between the Ptolemies based in Egypt and the Seleucids based in Syria. The Nabateans, on the other hand, the nomadic Arabs based south of Edom, managed to establish an independent kingdom in 169 BC. The Nabatean kingdom controlled much of the trade routes of the region, and it kind of just ranged along the Red Sea coast into the Hejaz desert up to the Damascus in Syria, which it controlled for a short period of time from 85 to 71 BC. Petra, Nabatea's barren capital, emerged in the 1st century AD. They were driven by this extensive water irrigation system, and they were very good in agriculture. There were also talented stone carvers. Al-Khazneh in the 1st century AD, it is believed to be the mausoleum of the Arab Nabatean king Aretas IV. Roman legions under Pompey conquered much of the Levant in 63 BC, inaugurating a Roman rule that lasted for centuries. In 106 AD, Emperor Trajan got Nabatea unopposed, and then they rebuilt the King's Highway. The Romans gave the Greek cities of Transjordan, Amman was Philadelphia, Jiraj was Gerasa, Umkez was Gedara, Tabakat Fal was Pella, and Irbid was Arbila. In 629 AD, during the Battle of Muta in what is today Al-Karak, the Byzantines, the Ghassanids, ward off an attack by a Muslim Rashidun force from the Hejaz in modern-day Saudi Arabia. The Byzantines were defeated by the Muslims still in 636 AD, which is called a well-known battle called the Battle of Yarmouk, just north of Transjordan. Transjordan was an essential territory for Damascus. The first or Rashidun Caliphate Islamic State was followed by the Umayyads between 661 to 750 AD. The Abbasid Caliphate campaign to take over the Umayyads, a powerful 749 AD earthquake, is thought to have contributed to the defeat of the Umayyads, who moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad. During the Abbasid rule from 750 to 969 AD, several of the tribes moved northward and they settled in the Levant. Then, after the decline of the Abbasid, the Transjordan was taken over by the Fatimid Caliphate between 969 to 1070, and then by the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem from 1115 to 1187 AD. The Crusaders left evidence in the Transjordan by constructing castles as part of the lordship of Old Rijordan. The Ayyubids built the Ajlun castle and rebuilt like other castles to be used as military posts against the Crusaders. During the Battle of Hattin in 1187 near Lake Tiberias, north of Transjordan, the Crusaders lost to Saladin, the founder of the Ayyubid dynasty, the dynasty between 1187 to 1260 AD. Villages in Transjordan under the Ayyubids became important stops for Muslim pilgrims that are going to Mecca. Several of the castles were used and expanded by the Mamluks between 1260 to 1516, who divided Transjordan between the provinces of Karak and Damascus. During the next century, Transjordan experienced the Mongol attacks, but they were defeated by the Mamluks after the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260. Then, in 1516, the Ottoman Caliphate took over the Mamluk territory. At that time, they experienced prosperity, but that did not last. The Ottoman ruling was abandoned. In addition, more Arab Bedouin tribes moved into Transjordan from Syria and the Hejaz during the first 3 centuries of Ottoman rule, including the tribes called the Adwan, then the Bani Sakar, and the Hoitite. These tribes established claims to different parts of the region, and with the absence of a government from the Ottomans, Transjordan became in a state of anarchy that continued until the 19th century. Then this led to a short-lived occupation by the Wahhabi forces from 1803 to 1812, an ultra-Orthodox Islamic movement that showed up in Najd, which is now modern-day Saudi Arabia. Ibrahim Pasha from Egypt, under the request of the Ottoman Sultan, turned on the Ottomans in 1833 and established his rule over the Levant. But his governmental policies led to the unsuccessful peasants' revolt in Palestine in 1834. And then the Egyptian rule ended in 1841, and then the Ottoman rule restored. Muslim Circassians and Chechens fleeing Russian persecution sought refuge in the Levant. Circassians first settled in the long-abandoned vicinity of Amman in 1867, and later in the surrounding villages. Muslim Circassians and Chechens fleeing Russian persecution sought refuge in the Levant. The Circassians settled in the vicinity of Amman in 1867, and then they kind of just later moved to surrounding villages. After having established the Ottoman administration, their ruling with heavy taxation policies led to revolts.